Welcome back, everyone. Today, I am going to show you how to string your tennis racket on a budget. For most folks, they prefer to have a professional string their racket. And these professional usually use a machine that costs anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. So honestly, I don't think my game is worth $3,000 or $5,000. However, I do think it is worth at least $250. So today we are going to be stringing my racket on this $250 ClipperMate machine. Now, one of the reasons why you want to string your own racket is a couple things. Number one, it's convenience, right? When you break a string, you can pretty much string your own racket within a 45-minute period. It'll take a little bit of practice the first several times, but once you get used to it, 45 minutes should be the maximum it should take you to string a tennis racket. Secondly, stringing your own tennis racket is very cheap and affordable. You can buy a reel like this for about 20, 30 bucks. I'm sorry, not 20, 30 bucks, maybe about 120 bucks, right? And each one of these reels can last you about approximately 10 tennis rackets. So it's both the combination of the convenience of getting your racket back within an hour and also the cost savings. The first thing we need to do, obviously, is here's the broken string right here. So here, for those who don't know, these are your cross strings. The cross strings run left to right, and these are your main strings. They run top to bottom. So I've been stringing tennis racket for about, I would say, at least 10, 12 years. I used to do it a lot in my old neighborhood, and then I stopped playing tennis for a while. I stopped playing tennis for about 15 years, and I restarted again about 2 years ago. So now I'm back to stringing my own tennis racket. I'm not stringing anybody else's tennis racket because it was a lot of work. But it's fun because you get to see the progress of a brand new racket. Let's go through the gears that we need to do our DIY stringing. Obviously, the first thing you need is the ClipperMate tabletop stringer. This ClipperMate costs approximately $250 and include all of the gears and the accessories that you would need. I will put a link to the stringer at the bottom of the description of the video here, but let's look at the anatomy of this ClipperMate. First, you have the weight system, okay? It goes anywhere from 20 pounds to 90 pounds. Obviously, you don't want to string it this low. However, some tennis players do string it this low, and you don't want to string it this high. I typically string mine around 56 pound. I find that that is the a good enough power, but again, you get enough control. So again, the higher the string tension, the more control you have, and the lower the string tension, the more power. However, if it's too low, the ball can really bounce off your racket. And if it's too high, you have a lot of control, but you don't have a lot of power. So again, based on your game, you have to choose the appropriate tension that will optimize your game. This section right here is where you will put the racket, where you will brace a racket on with these screws. Here are your clamps. These clamps are used to clamp onto the strings when you're pulling it. Your needle nose plier, you will use this to pull the strings out or unstring the racket. The awl is essentially if you need to poke holes through the different holes in your grommet, in your racket. And strings. So my preference is for the main string, I have the soft cold poly. The soft cold poly is a softer poly string. I use it for the main because it lasts a long time. This string, it can last maybe about 10 to 12 sessions before it breaks. So I really like this one a lot. It's very durable and soft at the same time. It's soft because you get to feel the ball and there's more control when the ball stays in your string longer. For the cross, I like to use Zydex, which is more like a synthetic gut. It has a lot of feel to it. This I use for the cross. Okay, it doesn't last as long as a poly, but again, it gives me the feel of a synthetic gut. If I was going to use all of the poly, I think my racket would feel very stiff. So this adds a little bit of softness, and you can definitely feel the ball when you use the combination of both these strings. So this is the racket right here. I removed all the strings. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin stringing our racket. Okay, let's go ahead and get started here. The first thing you need to do is measure out the strings. Now, on this clipper mate here, I have a piece of tape where I've labeled it as 18 by 16. 18 feet for the mains and 16 feet for the cross. This is a Wilson Pro Staff. You can go onto the Wilson website and it will list the main and the cross for your type of rack. Okay, so I measured it. I measured the easy way. This is 2 feet, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and 18 feet. And go ahead and use my clipper to cut that off there. And then I go ahead and thread it. So yeah, I use a string like I said, a lot of rackets, different types of racket, Prince, Pro Kennex, Head. I mean, you name it. Each racket has a different type of string pattern, so it was quite challenging. I mean, you definitely had to spend time figuring out how to string it and how to tie off the strings. Those are pretty challenging. But right now, I'm not stringing anybody else's racket except myself. The next step is to go ahead and get your racket and brace it with these clamps here that comes with the clipper mate. Make sure, this is really important, make sure that the racket is steady and not moving, right? Because if it moves, you can actually break or crack your racket. So make sure it's very firm. Firm. I guess this is not. So I have to redo this. Okay. Okay, not too firm, but firm enough so that it doesn't move around. You got your strings in here. Using the clamp, what you do is you go ahead and clamp the first 2 strings here. Okay, I clamp that down so that it doesn't move. Take my weighting system. It's set for 56 pounds. I'll go ahead and do my first draw. Okay. Usually, this is good enough. Usually, you want it vertical, right? But this is fine. I'm not competing in the US Open. Not yet. Okay, there goes the first main. So you have to, yeah, these grommets are a little bit hard to see because this table that I have is not at, chest height, but you have to bend down a little bit. But it'll do. Like I said, this is a DIY job, right? Do it yourself. You're trying to save money and you're trying to get the racket string by yourself because you don't have to go to a pro shop and drop it off. One thing that I want to point out is when you are stringing your own racket, make sure that you don't string all on one side. If you string all on one side and don't focus and don't balance it on the other side, what happens is that your racket can become warped, and that will damage your racket. So what I like to do is I would like to string maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 strings, right? And then I will alternate to the other side. The grommet, I've only had this racket for about maybe 2.5 years now, and the grommet on the head of this racket looks like it's starting to wear. So you can actually go to like Tennis Warehouse or any of the website that tells tennis racket, and you can actually find a replacement grommet for these guys. Okay, almost there. Like I said, what I like to do is I like to stretch the strings out. I don't like it to be stretched out when I'm playing. I like it stretched out already, right? So the tension remains. See how when I stretched it out, the weight system went down, so you have to stretch out the strings. You don't want it to be stretchy when you're playing. You want it to be already stretched out. I'm not sure they do that when you get it professionally strung, but they definitely should do that. This is another reason why I like to string my own tennis racket, because I know exactly what's being done to it and how I like to customize it. Okay, we're on the last one on this side. See, just enough strings, as you see. Just enough string. And usually the last one here is when I tie it off, so I give it a little bit more tension. Again, I'm pulling the string, stretching it out. Because you don't want any tension loss when you're playing in the middle of a match. Not too tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 on this side and 8 on the other side. Stretch out the strings again. Okay. Pliers are very important. I've never had a string come loose before, but I always do a double knot just to be on the safe side. Okay, as you see, the mains are done, and it plays like a nice heart. Next is the cross. Cross is 16 feet. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Okay. It doesn't have to be exact, but close enough. Again, I do a double knot to start. This starts on top. Depending on your rackets you have, you may start somewhere else, but for the Wilson Pro Staff 97, you got to start on top. Now this is the tedious part. You got to go up, down, up, down, up, down. You got to pay attention because you don't want to mess it up. This one's up. This one goes down. For the cross, I usually do 2 at a time just because I'm lazy and to save time. Technically, you're supposed to just do 1 at a time, right? So that way you can keep the tension. But like I said, I'm not a professional. I'm just a rec player. And this should suffice. Anyways, I don't think a couple pounds here and there at our playing level will make too much of a difference in terms of tactics and fundamentals. Typically, when you take your racket to get it professionally strung, it depends on the type of strings, right? The strings you want and so forth, but it can range anywhere from $25 to $40. So in tennis, right, we break our strings. It depends on how much tennis you play and how hard you play. You can break your strings about 15 to 18 times a year. At 35, $40 a piece. That's a lot of money there. That's a lot of money. One time I was stringing a bunch of rackets late at night, and then I finally got to my racket, which is probably like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was so tired, and I had a match the next day, and I wasn't paying attention to my own racket. I kind of screwed up because I did a like a how you're supposed to go up, down, up, down, up, down, or under, over, under, over. Well, I went over, 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 over. I didn't find out about it until the next day when I played the match. But I'm like, what the heck? It did make a little bit of a difference mentally. Mentally, it did, but I think, but from the match, it didn't make too much of a difference. Because tennis players in general, I think they are creatures of habit. They like to have the same thing over and over again. You have your routine, right? And if anything seems out of place, it kind of affects you mentally. once in a while, you want to take your awl and just, again, stretch out the strings. The key is to keep the racket tension as stable as possible when you're playing. You don't want the tension to be decreasing. So if you are using a racket, or if you were playing a match or hitting around and you notice that you just recently strung your racket and the tension has already decreased, that means your racket wasn't stringed properly. That's my cat. My cat's in the room right now. Hi, Momo. What are you doing? Hi, sweetie. Momo, come over here. What are you doing, Momo? So here is my cat right there. So let's take a look at it from this angle here. Again, what I like to do is make sure, hope I didn't break this. Okay, make sure that the tension is tight. And now we tie it off. And then cut off the excess strings. Take it off the brace. Oh, forgot about the clamp. There we go. And there you have it, a nicely strung tennis racket in under 25 minutes. Tension is awesome, perfect for my game at least. And the total cost for stringing this racket was about $10. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you on the court soon.